Hello out there, Bruce Kittle here, Hidden Pearl podcast fans, friends and followers. Appreciate you guys. Hope you had a great 4th of July weekend. Today is June 5th, and I'm coming at you with another Mindful Monday. I am in week 2 of a 3-part series that we're doing on some comments that I heard on a podcast. Leslie Booker, meditator, yogi, and Dharma leader, is from out east. It was on the 10% Happier podcast with Dan Harris. So they were talking about a lot of things, but she talked about the 3 characteristics of suffering, which include believing something is permanent, believing something should be perfect, and believing that it is personal to me. So she had reframed that from a friend of hers that she quoted in the podcast, which I cannot recall right now, but I thought it was pretty good. The 3 guidelines for living with a little bit less suffering would be that things are not permanent, it's not perfect, and it's not personal. So last week I talked a little bit on the notion of permanency and that things are not permanent and how that can free us up. And so this week I just want to take a quick look about things not being perfect. So when we think things should be perfect or that they have to be perfect, it adds a lot of stress, suffering, and anxiety to our lives. And honestly, we all know that that's really what we get sold from advertising, that everything's supposed to be perfect in all kinds of ways. And I'll talk about that. Instagram and social media, terrible for that, right? We get all these images of all these other people's perfect lives and all that kind of stuff. And it just kind of works on us. So this week, I want to take a look at this notion about perfection. And the reality is, and the guideline is then that it's not perfect. So a lot of our suffering, anxiety, and stress come because we are sold through, marketing and Wall Street and everybody that we are supposed to be perfect, that our lives are supposed to be perfect. This is particularly true with like Instagram, social media, and all that kind of stuff. And you guys go through that. We see all these beautiful bodies and what looks like perfect lives, perfect vacations, perfect job sites, and all that kind of stuff. And you and I both know that that's a bunch of bullshit. It's not really all that perfect because nobody's life is perfect in that way. So there's a couple categories in this that I want to talk about. One is just the self, the demands and expectations that people put on themselves, and this notion of the internal critic and negative self-talk. So in the bit of work that I've done with athletes, they certainly face this, or at least some of them do. And it's a real difficult piece, but I think it's much more broadly kind of suffered than that. So whatever it is, whatever walk of life you're in and whoever you are, there's no way that we haven't gone through some pieces where we feel like we haven't lived up to or measured up to the things in our life that we have expectations for. And it's certainly appropriate and good to want to be the very best you can be, but there's a balance between that of undermining yourself and constantly demanding perfection. And this can lead us to, so I mentioned our bodies, our lives, our friends, our love life, our families, our jobs, all of this stuff we hold up and we measure ourselves against other people, and we're thinking that we are not as good as they are and that we are not as perfect as we should be. So that is certainly one category. And so just kind of figuring that thing out. So the second one is then just kind of maybe moments in our life, right? So we keep thinking that it's all going to be good, and this notion is really that we're always supposed to be happy and that we're always supposed to have all these positive emotions. Now, it's good to have more happiness than less happiness, right? Okay, and I get that. But it's not all perfect, right? The moments of our lives don't unfold as a perfect, beautiful landscape, sunset, sunrise, whatever it is. The meal's not always perfect. The husband or the wife are not always perfect. My friend or significant other is not always perfect. My kids aren't always perfect. My neighbors and all that kind of stuff. It's just not. And yeah, it's good to have good thoughts and to not let those things weigh you down. Is just like with our interactions with other people. So the moments of our life are not going to all be perfect. And when we have this expectation that they are going to be perfect and then they don't match up, again, that kind of leads to this kind of difficulty and suffering. So the reality is, I think, that humanity just in itself isn't perfect. We're not. We're people. We're live. We move. We make decisions, sometimes not great ones, even though we're trying to do our very best. And we interact with other people in ways that sometimes doesn't always turn out the best. So a couple concepts with that, and we're going to talk more about this next week, is just looking around and seeing the world for what it is and all of its beautiful and perfect imperfection, right? It is just the way it is. And so we talk about in the mindfulness world about allowing and accepting. So allow it to be. It's okay. Just take a great big deep breath, look around, measure into your kind of surroundings and your life, and it is what it is. So allow it to be that. Just allow it. And then kind of step 2 in that process, I think, is acceptance. And it's not saying that I'm going to let everything just stay this way if it's a mess, but at this moment, I can't do anything more than just take a big deep breath, see it clearly, and be okay with it. So allowing and accepting that to be. So, and then we can kind of work from there. So then you can build a plan. You can start doing some things, but you can let go of the immediate discomfort and suffering by having to have this changed or having to have it perfect. So we can work on all that kind of stuff. So we're always building and working and trying to move in the right direction, but also with a sense of peace and calm and acceptance of where we're at. So I wish all of you guys the very best week, a super great week with this 4th of July holiday, a mindful week focused on seeing how perfectly imperfect everything is and that it's really just great the way it is. And we'll keep striving to be the very best we can be, but in the moment, let's find some peace, let's find some joy, let's find some happiness. All right, here's coming to you with the Mindful Monday, Bruce Kittle with the Hidden Pros Podcast, and I hope you have a super terrific mindful week. Cut.